Chapter 15. Conclusion. That I may proceed to bring to pass my act, my strange act, and perform my work, my strange work, that man may discern between the righteous and the wicked, saith your God. D&C 100-195. Fool's Gold. The Lord has a controversy with the nations of the earth. Their corruptions and wickedness have given strength to the powers of darkness, and driven away the Spirit of God. Through money-mad and power-hungry men, the greatest conspiracy ever created is now dominating the political and economic affairs of the world. Throughout the blood-soaked pages of history, these diabolical schemers have created wars, depressions, and slavery for others. The forces of evil always attempt to overthrow freedom, administer unjust laws, and rob others of their money and property. The only form of government known by wicked men is a totalitarian government, and tyranny is a doctrine of devils. Men cannot claim ignorance of the perils that are upon us, for John, the beloved apostle of Christ, left a solemn prophecy and warning to the saints of the latter days. John clearly saw a worldwide conspiracy that would nearly enslave the whole world prior to the millennial reign of Christ. He saw tyrannical powers so powerful and domineering that many men would be killed rather than become slaves to it. Rev. 13:15. John said it would attempt to force all men, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to become subservient to its power. This world conspiracy would shackle all men with an economic chain so tight that no man might buy or sell, 13:17, unless he subscribed to their monetary monopoly. Another clear description and warning concerning these evil conspiracies was given in the Book of Mormon. Moroni gave a warning to this generation when he said that such evil conspiracies have been handed down even from Cain, and that these secret and dark conspiracies are kept up by the power of the devil, and also they are had among all people to get power and gain. His final plea and warning was, "Wherefore, the Lord commandeth you, when ye shall see these things come among you, that ye shall awake to a sense of your awful situation, because of this secret combination which shall be among you, or woe be unto it, because of the blood of them who have been slain, for they cry from the dust for vengeance upon it, and also upon those who built it up. For it cometh to pass that whoso buildeth it up seeketh to overthrow the freedom of all lands, nations, and countries, and it bringeth to pass the destruction of all people, for it is built up by the devil, who is the father of all lies, even that same liar who beguiled our first parents, yea, even that same liar who hath caused man to commit murder from the beginning. Who hath hardened the hearts of men that they have murdered the prophets, and stoned them, and cast them out from the beginning." Ether 8:24-25. Since the day that Cain created a secret society, there has been a foundation upon which the devil could manipulate wicked men into doing his evil designs. When Jesus said, "My house is the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves," he was exposing the secret conspiracy of Satan. By casting out the den of thieves, he made war on the society of Satan, and he was signing his own death warrant. It was these servants of Satan who provided the 30 pieces of silver for Judas to betray Christ into their hands. This same secret combination arranged to have the Romans put him on trial, and also for the Romans to execute him. After the resurrection of Christ, these same masters of deceit met in secret council, and they gave large money unto the soldiers, to lie about the resurrection of Christ's body. They further promised that if it should come to the governor's ears, we will persuade him, and secure you. Matt. 28:12-13. These money masters could buy soldiers, priests, or governors. They were able to persuade men to lie, cheat, steal, or betray. They use the same tactics today. All of the true apostles and disciples of Christ are aware of the conspiracies of Satan. Paul the apostle left a solemn warning to put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. F. 6:12. As early as 1831, the Lord revealed to Joseph Smith that the enemy is combined, and these conspirators were plotting in secret chambers to bring to pass even your destruction in process of time, and ye knew it not. D&C 38:12-13. God commanded the missionaries, who were going to minister in the East, to warn those who believed in the gospel to flee to the West, and this in consequence of that which is coming on the earth, and of secret combinations. D&C 42:64. Hence, the nucleus or central headquarters of the secret combinations was in the East. Later the Lord said, "Watch, for the adversary spreadeth his dominions in darkness reigneth." D&C 82:5. In July 1849, 2 years after the saints arrived in the valley, a correspondent from the New York Tribune attended a meeting in Salt Lake City. On October 9, 1849, an article was published in that newspaper wherein Brigham Young was quoted as saying, After this came a lengthy discourse from Mr. Brigham Young, president of the society, partaking somewhat of politics, much of religion and philosophy, and a little on the subject of gold, showing the wealth, strength and glory of England, growing out of her coal mines, iron and industry, and the weakness, corruption and degradation of Spanish America, Spain, etc., and her idle habits. Everyone seemed interested and pleased with his remarks, and all appeared to be contented to stay at home and pursue a persevering industry, although mountains of gold were near them. The able speaker painted in lively colors the ruin which would be brought upon the United States by gold, and boldly predicted that they would be overthrown because they had killed the prophets, stoned and rejected those who were sent to call them to repentance, and finally plundered and driven the church of the saints from their midst, and burned and desolated their city and temples. He said God had a reckoning with that people, and gold would be the instrument of their overthrow. The Constitution and laws were good, in fact the best in the world, but the administrators were corrupt, and the laws and Constitution were not carried out, therefore they must fall. Day. News 2/1697. The devil is ruling the world today. With subtle deception, he has blinded the eyes of those who should have detected and exposed him. It is one of the mysteries of the age how American citizens have been so passive as they pay tribute to this massive destructive machine which is preparing their own burial. Ecclesiastical leaders, especially Mormons, seem to bend over backwards to pay homage to the modern disciples of the devil. When religious leaders revere such a pack of rascals, it is evident that the blind are leading the blind. The devil's deceptions have dirtied every table, and religious leaders cast aside the laws of God in their support of unconstitutional and unjust laws of the land. Our religious hierarchy are excommunicating members of the church for not paying the income tax, in an effort to redouble their esteem for these modern Gadianton robbers. God once promised the children of Israel that if they would only serve him, then he would be their ruler and lawgiver. Not only did he promise to lead them to happiness, freedom and wealth, but he also promised to fight their battles for them. Jude 1:30, 3:22, 24. Thus, when Israel trusted God, they were prosperous and free, but as soon as they chose to have a mortal king, Isam 8:4-7, they became a captive nation and were brought into bondage, slavery, and scattered among the nations. In the latter days, Israel has been commanded to gather together, and to obey only the law of the land which is constitutional, supporting that principle of freedom and maintaining rights and privileges, which belongs to all mankind. D&C 98:5, they must live by every word which proceedeth forth out of the mouth of God. D&C 98:11 and Matt. 4:4. Men should serve God without fear of any man, neither fear that great beast which has been created, for God has promised to also fight the battles of Israel in the latter days. See D&C 98:115, 98:37, 105:14, 1 Nephi 22:14, 2 Nephi 27:3, also Revelation of 1880. Well-informed Latter-day Saints know the devil has declared that he would buy up the armies and navies of the world with gold and silver, and thus with blood and terror, he would rule the earth. Who owns the gold and silver of the world today? It is those who are now controlling the military armies, the politicians, and all the financiers of the world. They are 1. Stockpiling all the gold in their own vaults. 2. Creating depressions and inflation. 3. Robbing men of both their income and property through taxation. 4. Promoting wars among the nations. 5. Making and enforcing laws of the land against the inalienable rights and freedoms of man. 6. Controlling the movies, television, education, and the news media. 7. Promoting atheism and evolution. 8. Destroying morals, standards and religion. 9. Promoting socialism and communism. 10. Forcing intermarriage among the races to develop a gray race. 11. Establishing a worldwide enslavement of all people. The devil has his disciples and apostles on earth. Some of them are in the camps of those who create wars, depressions and murders to gain power and wealth. They are master artisans of conspiracy, subversion and lies. In their power no man has personal or God-given rights, but rather they must serve them like slaves. Some of these intellectual bureaucrats are trying to create a one-world government, a kingdom of serfs without God and a people without freedom. But the Lord has plans to overthrow the work of the devil. The relief mine is one of them. Therefore, when that mine comes in, it will not only be a means for personal prosperity as many have wished, but it will also be the means of alleviating the sufferings and sorrow of millions of souls, who have unknowingly put their trust in deceiving men and apostate governments. Modern Israel has assumed the speech, customs, and styles of the modern Babylonians. We are governed by their laws, traditions, and regulations. Indeed, we look and act like them, and have been influenced by their crimes, corruption, and wickedness. And to render additional offerings of subservience to their foreign gods, we have been taught to scatter among the nations, to observe and obey their strange laws. This has brought Israel into temporal and spiritual bondage. Through Isaiah, the Lord in his anguish cried, O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err. Isa 3:12, because they regard not the work of the Lord, neither consider the operation of his hands, therefore, my people are gone into captivity. Isa 5:12-13, because the priest and the prophet averred, they err in vision, they stumble in judgment. Isa 28:7, but the Lord has promised that Israel would someday be let out of bondage by power, and with a stretched out arm. E&C 103:17. God's gold. The ancient prophets Isaiah and Micah were shown in vision one of the most remarkable events in the history of man. They beheld nations gathering to a mountain. In the spirit of prophecy they said, And it shall come to pass in the last days, that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. Isa 2:2-3, Micah 4:1-2. How amazing that they saw a certain mountain that would be exalted above all the other mountains. Something would occur at this mountain that would cause many distressed people to flow to it. What would cause nations of people to leave their native lands and seek out this special mountain? Why would this mountain be classed as a part of God's house, or kingdom? Why did these two prophets call it the mountain of the Lord? Joseph Smith once prophesied that the white horse will raise an ensign on the tops of the mountains of peace and safety. The white horse will find the mountains full of minerals, and they will become very rich. You will see silver piled up in the streets. You will see gold shoveled up like sand. Gold will be of little value even in a mercantile capacity, for the people of the world will have something else to do in seeking for salvation. Peace will be taken from the earth, and there will be no peace only in the Rocky Mountains. You will be so numerous that you will be in danger of famine, but not for the want of seed time and harvest, but because of so many to be fed. Many will come with bundles under their arms to escape the calamities, and there will be no escape, except by fleeing to Zion. The white horse Prophetsy. It is evident that the international conspirators are planning an economic collapse for all nations. Distressed people will come to those who have power to deliver them from their spiritual and temporal bondage. Only the values of gold will relieve them from such a calamity. No gold rush of the past will equal the flow of people that will come from all nations. The relief mine of the Lord shall be like an ensign to the nations, because it will assist them in gathering to Zion for peace and safety. In these last days there will be a separation of the wheat from the tares, the sheep from the goats, or the righteous from the wicked. After that the Lord will burn up the chaff with unquenchable fire. King Nebuchadnezzar was also shown, in a dream, what would happen in the latter days. Daniel related the dream and its interpretation to the king, by saying, This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. Dan 2:31. He also saw a little stone that was cut out of the mountain. The stone soon became strong enough to break in pieces the terrible image. That which was cut out of the mountain shall be God's. With it shall come the power to break in pieces the great false and corrupt image of the beast. After that, God's kingdom shall reign over the earth. If the saints would have been worthy, Zion would have been redeemed, and the treasures from many mines would have already come into their hands. The Lord has always had riches and store sufficient, yea, even in abundance to redeem Zion, and establish her waste places. D&C 101-75. But because of the failure of the saints to purchase the land of Zion, Orson Pratt prophesied. Now, when the time comes for purchasing this land, we will have the means. How this means will be brought about, it is not for me to say. Perhaps the Lord will open up mines containing gold and silver, or in some other way as seemeth best. Wealth will be poured into the laps of the latter-day saints, till they will scarcely know what to do with it. I will here again prophesy on the strength of former revelation that there are no people now upon the face of the earth, not even excepting London, Paris, New York, or any of the great mercantile cities of the globe, there are no people now upon the face of the earth, so rich as the latter-day saints will be in a few years to come. Having their millions, therefore they will purchase the land, build up cities, towns and villages, build a great capital city at headquarters, in Jackson County, Missouri. JD 21-135. With these riches in such tremendous amounts being poured into the hands of the latter-day saints, there will also come a great responsibility. This wealth must be used in the manner that is acceptable and pleasing to the Lord. It was explained to Coyle that there would be 4 major obligations for the stockholders: mining, milling, manufacturing and minting, the 4 M's. Although these cover a very broad field, there would be very little that the stockholders would not be involved in, directly or indirectly. They would be responsible for managing almost every conceivable project and venture. The bishop had seen how many of these ancient prophecies would be fulfilled. Also, 2 angelic messengers spoke for an hour and a half, revealing information that was too powerful, too sacred for those who didn't want it, and who were unworthy of it anyway. Like the greater portion of the Book of Mormon, which was sealed and too sacred for people who were unappreciative of the lesser portion, so also will the power of these great riches be withheld from the unworthy. Milton once said, "They also serve who always stand and wait," and this is true for many faithful men today. Chosen men are waiting upon the Lord for his appointed time of deliverance. Rather than seek to systems of financial enterprises or establish themselves as some self-appointed individual, they choose to let God perform his strange act. Just as the 70 elders of Israel who remained atop the mountain fasting and praying to await the return of their Moses, so also the faithful elders of today must completely prepare themselves for the return of one like unto Moses. Anciently, most of the Israelites were dancing and reveling in the corrupt customs of the Egyptians, and now the same scene is being reenacted. But today all the nations of the earth are reveling in debauchery, sexual wickedness, drugs, atheism, and crime. Only a few faithful men are preparing for the coming of the Lord. But today more than ever before, men must stand up for God or be lost. They must defend their freedom, defend the sacred principles of the gospel, and protect those inalienable rights. It is a time of testing. It is all that men can do to prepare themselves to be worthy when the Lord shall come out of his hiding place. In the coming crisis, man will be required to be as valiant for God as any ancient prophet or apostle. Until that time, man must wait for the Lord to bring about the means of opening up the golden vaults of the dream mine. The Lord can create or move wealth very easily, and He can bless men with riches or take their wealth away from them. President Brigham Young said, "These treasures that are in the earth are carefully watched. They can be removed from place to place according to the good pleasure of Him who made them and owns them. He has His service, and it is just as easy for an angel to remove the minerals from any part of one of these mountains to another, as it is for you and me to walk up and down this hall." This, however, is not understood by the Christian people. J.D. 1937. People do not know it, but I know there is a seal set upon the treasures of the earth. Men are allowed to go so far and no farther. I have known places where there were treasures in abundance, but could men get them? No. J.D. 1939. Even if there was not an ounce of gold in the dream mine, the Lord could put it there when it's supposed to be there. The riches of the earth are His to take or to give. He uses them to His own purpose and reason. He can change water to wine, multiply bread and fish, change a stick to a snake, or turn rocks to gold. Reason, logic, and scientific evaluations may have little or nothing to do with the comprehension of God's work on earth. Noah's Ark, Joseph's grain bins, Moses' rod, or Joseph's golden plates were objects for ridicule and scoffing, but to God they were means of saving Israel. The work of God is foolishness to most men, and conversely, most of men's work is foolishness to God. God will open the vaults of the relief mine when He appoints the time, and He will open it up in the manner He chooses. This, too, was shown to Bishop Coyle in one of his last dreams. When it was time for the mine to turn out, he said, there would be a light-complexioned man with white hair, who would come from north of the mine with plenty of money to open the mine and finance the first shipment of ore. He seemed to be identified with the little spot of blue in the dark clouds over by the point of the mountain. The stockholders would rally with him and bring about many wonderful and amazing changes around the mine. During the mild open winter that would follow, the grain bins would be built, and beautiful White City would then have its beginning. The Dream Mine Story, Pierce, page 64. Bishop John Coyle's prophecies about the wars, the depressions, and innumerable other events were only a hint of the great knowledge and power that shall accompany one of the greatest occurrences in the history of the world. The present story of the Dream Mine is only a preface to the world-shaking events that will develop through the Lord's handling of this sacred work. The relief mine has a great destiny. 1. It will be the means of bringing relief to the poor and hungry. 2. It will provide the means for gathering the house of Israel. 3. It will become another witness of how God protects and cares for His children, if they are willing to obey Him. 4. It will become another testimony to the Book of Mormon. 5. It will restore faith and confidence in God, within men from many nations. 6. It will further establish testimony that God speaks to man. 7. It will rebuke the Pharisees, and also prove the foolishness of the wisdom of men. 8. It will provide the means for men to live the united order and consecration. 9. It will give the saints the temporal power they need to withstand the enemies of God. 10. It will open the way for wealth to build up the New Jerusalem, the great temple of promise, and usher in the millennial reign of Christ on earth. Mormons are proud of their heritage. They built an empire out of a wilderness, they tamed the desert and the Indians, they fought off mobs and armies, their faith saved them from famine and crickets. Through poverty, sweat and blood, they lived and died in a righteous faith. But their greatest accomplishments are yet in the future. Through the labors of good men and women, shall the fulfillment of the promises to Abraham be fully realized. The latter-day saints shall give both temporal and spiritual salvation to the nations of the earth. To bring about happiness for all men of all nations, man must learn to live by the golden rule, rather than to rule with gold. President Brigham Young said, "It is the privilege of the saints to enjoy every good thing, for the earth and its fullness belong to the Lord, and He has promised all to His faithful saints, but it must be enjoyed without the spirit of lust, and in the spirit of the gospel. Then the sun will shine sweetly upon us, each day will be filled with delight, and all things will be filled with beauty, giving joy, pleasure, and rest to the saints." J.D. 882. When Israel has been gathered, and the Lord is in their midst, then the corruptions of the wicked will have been purged out of Zion. The wealth of the mine will not only deliver the saints from bondage, but it will bring them into an untold prosperity. They shall be the richest people on earth. Man will learn a spiritual unity, their lives will be dedicated to the Lord. The mission of the mine will then be changed from relief to beautification. In gratitude and devotion, man will once again pay adoration to their Lord, and gold will be used as it should to adorn His temples, His cities, and His kingdom.